Hello, everyone. Today is a massive podcast. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by Sir Darren Jacklin, who is the managing director of Darren Jacklin Group of Companies. Darren, how are you doing today?
Well, it's a beautiful day here in Vancouver, Canada. I'm grateful to be here and make a difference and be of service.
Absolutely. It is a pleasure to have you today. So excited to dive into your backstory, your journey, to all things business, acquisitions, and hopefully people listening can learn a thing or two and hopefully even change their lives. How does that sound, Darren? Shall we do it?
You know what? I'm a results-driven, practical person, so absolutely grab a notepad and let's take some notes.
Grab a notepad, grab some popcorn, and put your feet up because this is going to be a good one. Amazing. So, Darren, could you start by telling us about perhaps the earlier years of your journey, perhaps when you were much younger, and how your journey looked like getting to the position you're in today?
Sure, yeah, I'll give you a high-level overview, kind of some context for there. So I grew up in a small town in Canada, a place called Swift Current, Saskatchewan, Canada. Less than 20,000 people in population, middle-income family. I failed grade 1 of public school, and I was misdiagnosed with a learning disability and a reading disability. And so my parents received a telephone call from the school, and they said, can you come in for a parent-teacher meeting? We'd like to sit down and have a conversation with you. So they sat down with my parents and said, your son, Darren, is unfit to attend regular public school. He can't focus. He's distracted. We're not sure what to do with him. So they put me into what we call special education. So I never went to regular normal public school like the rest of the school kids in my neighborhood did. So from grade 1 to grade 12, I was in special education with a learning disability and a reading disability and put on a pharmaceutical drug called Ritalin. So because of childhood trauma, Harris, at age 7, I created my first business called Rent a Kid. And I would go out and knock on doors, shovel snow in the wintertime, rake leaves, mow lawns, clean swimming pools, walk dogs, anything I could do to be in service to my community to solve a problem and make money. And what I realized is that we don't have money problems in life. We have thinking problems in life. If we go out and solve problems for other people as a fair means of exchange, as a win-win, we'll make money. So I struggled throughout elementary school, junior high school, then got into high school in grade 11, was taken on a class one day by a guidance counselor and a school teacher. They sat down with me. They said, Darren, if you graduate from grade 12, what are your plans for your life? You're not going to go to college. You're not going to go to university. You're not one of those kids. You may not graduate. What are you going to do? And I said, I want to travel the world. I want to make a lot of money. I want to make a big difference in the world. And they looked at each other and they said, Darren, you're never going to get a formal academic educational degree. Kids like you are going nowhere fast. You're in fact what we call a throwaway kid. Now, this is many years ago. Today, you get probably lawsuited for that. But they told me I was a throwaway kid and kids like me would never amount to much. Well, I tell you, that lit a fire under my butt. Like, I'll prove you, because I grew up not being good enough, not being smart enough, never going to amount to much. So I had a lot of negative self-talk that, you're the dumb kid in class. You're not smart enough. You're not good enough. You're not like the rest of the normal kids in school. So I had something to prove. I had a chip on my shoulders. So when I did graduate from grade 12, just barely. And then I went off and I did multiple suicide attempts to end my life by driving my car at 140 kilometers an hour or 85 miles an hour towards the telephone pole. And I did this several times over about a 6-month period of time. Wow. And on my final attempt, I got so scared, I said, I can't do this. So I drove to a crisis line. It was an office where they did telephone crisis lines, if you were a suicide prevention line. And I rang the doorbuzz and I turned myself in, and they offered me counseling, and went from there to taking a Dale Carnegie training program to then joining Toastmasters International, 2 public speaking leadership organizations. And those 2 organizations changed my environment. It changed my friends. And it changed my mindset, which then changed my results. And that was a foundation for me that I could stand on, where people believed more in me than I believed in myself, because I didn't believe in myself. I wasn't good enough. And what I realized was in my 20s, I lied a lot. I exaggerated things. I embellished things. I inflated things. And I had no integrity. I had no integrity in my life growing up. And what I realized, that things weren't working for me. And so later on in my life, I met different mentors and different coaches who came into my life. And they said, Darren, you have a complete blind spot in your life. You have no integrity. You exaggerate, you lie, you embellish things. Because here I was coming from trauma and survival. Because what happened for me when I was younger, when I was coming up, I was so scared of rejection. I went and got a job as a telemarketer. I used to make 400 cold calls a day, 2,000 cold calls a week, calling all across Canada, selling magazine subscriptions from 5 to 9 p.m. Monday to Friday. And after 7 months, my boss came to me one day. He said, Darren, you've reached the top peak as the #1 telemarketer in Canada for Maclean's magazine. You can't go any further. I suggest you give your 2 weeks notice and go on your own and create a corporate training business. Now, this is back in 1995, right? Before
Wow.
the internet. And so I was terrified because I live in paycheck to paycheck. And he says, you should give notice. So I gave notice, and I went, Harrison, living paycheck to paycheck to living panic to panic. And I ended up getting my car repossessed and becoming homeless and living on the streets, living on welfare. Didn't know where my next meal was. And at times, my next meal came from a garbage dumpster. So I know what it's like to be flat broke financially, have no money,
Wow.
have your bank account frozen, not even have an address to live at, not have a credit card, not have a debit card, nothing, and turn that all around to a point, just full transparency. I had an R9 credit rating. Now, most people watching this have no clue what an R9 credit rating is. They've never heard of it. So just give you some context, in the United States, America, and Canada, an R9 credit rating is the worst possible credit score you can get through Equifax or TransUnion credit. It is worst case scenario. Statistically, very few people ever get that because it's actually even worse than bankruptcy.
Wow.
In terms of risk profile. And I was an R9, and I turned that all around over a period of time to get to where I am today. So when people tell me they've got, they're going through adversities and challenges and setbacks, it's only temporary. It's only a season. Because I've been worst case scenario than you. If you plan it out as a worst case scenario, being homeless, losing everything, being an R9 credit rating, being so financially broke that I couldn't even afford bankruptcy because I couldn't afford the fees to declare bankruptcy. That's how broke I was.
Wow. Wow. I mean, what was that time like, Darren? I mean, I know it must have been tough. It's scary, tough. You didn't know what you wanted to do. How did you pull yourself out of that? I mean, some people, it's awful to say it, and you mentioned it, some people have no way out of being pulled out of it, and some people are stuck, and some people stay in there. How did you pull yourself out of that? What did it take? What kind of clicked to actually pull yourself from perhaps the deepest points of hell there is?
Great question. So I didn't have any friends because I owed them all money. My family didn't want to talk to me because I owed them all money.
Wow.
So I didn't, it was all arguments and fights and confrontations. That was my world. It was just chaotic, very toxic, because I couldn't keep my word. My word had no power. Because to me, everybody says talk is cheap. Well, my talk was very cheap to everybody because my words had no power because I never followed through and delivered on what my words were. So the expectation of people was that he's not going to follow through. The check's in the mail. Yeah, it's not coming. Yeah, you owe me money. I'm never going to get paid back. That was the listening of other people of me. The problem was I was playing the victim, blaming them. And I was the victim. Oh, poor me. And so what it was is in the earlier days, I went to the public library because it was free. And I had a library card that was free. And I would go into the business finance section of the library. And even though I was raised with a learning disability and reading disability, and I would start to look at different titles of books and start to immerse myself in personal professional development because it was positive. I would drive around on my bike because I lost my car. My car got repossessed. So I'd use a bicycle that somebody gave me. And I would ride around looking at different neighborhoods to start dream building, to give me inspiration from within, because my performance was failing. But I had to bet on myself and believe myself that as a human being, I wasn't failing. Just my performance was failing. And that was a distinction in my mindset, is a distinction I created, that my performance in terms of where I'm at right now in my life, and my results are, my bank accounts are all in overdraft. Some of them are closed. My credit card's been cut up. My telephone's disconnected because I was 4 months behind on paying my telephone bill. Now the collectors can't call my phone, and they mail me, and it's getting returned to sender because I just got evicted. So all this stuff is going on in my life. But what I had to realize was the only thing I could control was my mindset. And I learned that in Dale Carnegie and Toastmasters training, was the power of the mindset, because I learned about public speaking. And with public speaking, I was terrified and very scared. And they said, if you focus on your mindset will change everything. Then your environment of who's all around you and what you see. So that I had to, so what I realized was the turning point in my life, Harris, the major turning point, which is the takeaway for people today, was committing to my commitments. So when I would write down during the waking hours of my day, here's what I'm going to do today. And then following through, even if it's hard, even if I don't feel like it, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's scary, follow through and commit to my commitments. So if I give my word to something, which is my personal promise to myself, which is my integrity, at the end of the day, I check it off and complete it. And I consistently do that over a certain period of time to build the belief that I can follow through and keep my word. See, the thing is, I used to mistrust people. I was always very skeptical of other people. Why? Because I didn't trust myself, because I couldn't follow through on keeping my word.
Got
So
it.
why would I trust me and bet on me if I didn't trust myself? I wouldn't trust anybody else. So I was very suspicious and very mistrusting of everybody else.
Yeah.
And what I realized was one of my mentors came into my life and he said, Darren, do you know that your words have no power? And he sat me down and he said, Darren, he said, imagine this. Imagine if whatever you give your word to today, that if you don't honor and follow through on your word, we cut off your finger. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's skin in the game, Darren. You see, when you realize that the power of your words, we hear in business that talk is cheap. Well, in fact, most people cheapen their talk because their words have no power. Think about that. Let that land. Most people cheapen their talk because their words have no power. They walk into a room.
Wow.
And automatically first impression is, I don't trust that person because that person showed up late. That person's not professionally dressed. That person doesn't make eye contact. All these things is the first impression where he'll get to know you, like you, and trust you. And I was that guy because I couldn't keep my word to myself, which is my personal promises. And therefore, I couldn't keep my agreements with other people. So what I did was I actually hired an integrity coach, paid money, hired an integrity coach to do like an audit on my life, which is very uncomfortable, terrifying, scary, and actually go through of all my out of integrities, personally, professionally in my life. And I had lists and lists and lists of people. And I had to get uncomfortable and make contact with all these people. And I reached out to almost 100%. And some didn't return my phone calls or text messages or emails, but the majority did. And there were some uncomfortable, scary conversations where I was sweating, I was shaking. And I had to get present to the impact that when I don't honor my word, what's the ripple of impact on other human beings' lives? See, I was totally unconscious, total blind spot, totally unaware that when I would give my word to something, the impact it would have on other human beings' lives, I was totally unaware of it because I was selfish and focused on myself, just trying to survive, trying to pay my bills on time.
Wow.
I was all about me, selfish about myself, not realizing the impact that my words had on other human beings' lives. And I had to come to terms and look at that blind spot in my life that I didn't want to look at because it was ugly and scary and it was big. And I had to come to terms with that, and enough was enough. And I faced myself, and I started to make contact with all the people that I had broken my promises and agreements with. My life changed. My bank accounts changed. My quality of life changed. My postal code changed. The opportunities, the seats at the table changed. I become knighted as one of the very few people in the world to ever get knighted because of my integrity. Because I took it on like a firefighter running into a burning building. I started to chase integrity, even though it was scary and terrifying. And still to this day, in my relationship with Tatiana, the love of my life, I am always loving up and skilling up, because when you're playing a really big game in the world, you're not going to always be in integrity. But the key thing is, as soon as I go out of integrity, being proactive to actually restore the integrity. So now people know me as my word. So when I show up, it's my word that shows up. And that's why I have all these opportunities. And that's why I have a group of companies, International Foundation, serve on multiple paid boards of directors and advisory boards, because I keep my word. That's the secret sauce. That's the juice. If people just get that today, it's just keeping your word. Keep your word. If you say you're going to go to the gym, you go to the gym. If you say you're going to eat healthy, you eat healthy. If you say you're going to be a person and be on time, be early. And then what I do in my life is a picture of an elephant. I'll show you something that's practical. So what I do is I live by a calendar. Everything is in my calendar in my life. If it's not in my calendar as an existent structure, there's no evidence that it exists in my life. So if you and I were on a hiking trail and we wanted to do something together, as an example, because I hike every day in my life, first thing I do is I'd open up my phone and I would open up my calendar and structure it into the calendar.
Got it.
Next thing that I do in terms of existence is I then set alarms for everything in my phone. So that way I'm always on time and I'm always accountable and responsible to what I give my word to.
Wow.
Because if we look, Harris, if you look at your phone right now and I said, hey, you and I are going to arrange a dinner party or an investor party.
Yeah.
And I want you to pick 50 people. In your cell phone right now, I want you to invite them to this party. And there's going to be an expense. You're going to have a financial expense of maybe hiring a caterer, an event planner, ordering some food and beverages. So there's going to be a financial expense.
Yeah.
So now you're going to think, oh, geez, like, okay, who's on my list now? Because if I'm paying money, I better make sure they fall through because I've got some financial skin in the game. There's going to be people that you're going to, and if we send out a calendar invitation electronically, there's going to be people in your mind, you're going to think, well, I don't know if I should invite them. I don't know if they're going to show up. They're going to flake out. See, this is
Absolutely.
your listing of these people. And if you have a listing of these people, other people in the world have a listing of these people. And this is how the people walk around as human beings,
Yeah.
not realizing the listing of what other people have of them. And there's other people, if you send out an invitation to invite them to a dinner party, you know, like, hey, if I invite Sir Darren Jacklin and he accepts the invitation, it's done. He'll be there. And if something unexpectedly happens as an emergency, he'll be in communication beforehand to let me know that something unexpected came up and he won't be able to make it. You see, and this is what people don't realize when they're getting into business with people. And this is where I made mistakes early on. This is where people get involved with relationships. And then they realize there's a lot of baggage and there's a lot of liabilities and a lot of risks that they didn't know about because they didn't have the uncomfortable conversation up front as part of their due diligence. I've done this with business partners in the past. You know, I've taken on the risk and the liability and the responsibility of realizing that the person owed a lot of money, or, you know, they had a lot of integrities and they brought that baggage with them into this relationship, and now it became toxic, and now it became poisoned, and now it blew up.
Wow.
So now what I do in business is I take my time slowly through discovery process and due diligence to get to know people.
Wow.
I don't rush into it. When I meet people at trade shows or conferences or seminars or workshops or traveling on a plane, or I get introductions all the time for people, I take my time to get to know people. And then what I do is I give them micro commitments. So what micro commitments are, and I learned this from a billionaire friend of mine, is you give people, like, for example, I'd say, Harris, do you like to read books? You're like, yeah, I like to read books. I say, great. When was the last book you read? I'm like, well, I read a book 2 months ago. Okay, great. If I give you an audio book I recommend, or a book to read, would you read it? Like, yeah, okay, great. So when could you read this book by? And you're like, well, I can read it by the end of the month. Okay, great. What date and what time? So it's specific, it's measurable, and it's actionable. It's got to be specific, measurable, and actionable. I say, okay, great, Harris, can I make a request to you? We'll just make up a month. On June 30th at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Zone, can you send me a text message and let me know you've read the book? Like, yeah, okay, great. So then I'll make a note of that. By June 30th, 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Zone, Harris is going to send me a text message. He's either going to do it or he's not going to do it. It's reasons or results. So you're either going to give me a result, or you're going to give me a whole bunch of stories and reasons why you didn't do it, which are excuses. Okay? It's reasons or results. And so what I'm looking for is I'm going to give you micro commitments, because if you can't follow through consistently on the micro commitments, then why should I invest in your company? Why should we do a joint venture, strategic alliance, or why should we get into a relationship or a partnership together if you can't honor small micro commitments? And what I realized, Harris, throughout my life, people who've been very successful around me that disappeared from my life and then re-entered my life later on once I restored my integrity, is that they were giving me micro commitments and I didn't pass the tests.
Got it.
Because my word had no power. And then later on, a few years later on, when I got my integrity restored, they came to me in private conversation and said, yeah, Darren, you know that thing about micro commitments? We were doing micro commitments on you, doing integrity tests, and you didn't pass. So my wife's intuition was telling me that you're kind of flaky. You're unreliable. You don't honor your word. You don't honor your agreements.
Wow.
So when we look at high performance, like if you look at LY2NK Foundation, you look at the Darren Jacklin Group companies, you look at what we're doing, we have high performance teams of men and women. And those people are hand selected to have a seat at the table to work within our organization, because they operate from a high level of workability, of integrity, accountability, responsibility, discipline, and focus. Behavior never lies. Behavior never lies. So when people out there want to start building teams or get around high performance people, make sure that you're checking your integrity at the door of how you show up and how you function and what you give your word to. Because people, I used to just show my word out there. I'll be there. I'll do this. I'll do that. And no intention of ever following through. No intention of ever getting it done or sending them stuff. No intention. I just wanted to look good. I just wanted to look good. Image and ego.
Wow.
I wanted to impress people. I want people to like me. So I'm just going to say yes, even though I don't want to, even though I'm not going to do it. I just want to say yes so they like me. Not realizing the impact of my words, of not honoring my word and not following through.
Wow. I'm absolutely gobsmacked. That is something that a lot of people never even think about. When you think about it, it's nothing complicated. It's not rocket science, but the essence of it, right? You either get it or you don't. And the big saying, people, is, and perhaps this is the old adage, debate, can people change? Can people change, or are they stuck in their way? And are people just born the way they're born, and that's how they're going to go and die? So what is your take on that? I'll give you
a practical example. In fact, I'm going to tell on myself, okay? It's 2020. I think that's the year COVID-19 broke out, right? 2020.
Yeah, March
It was February,
2020.
March. Okay, so February 26th, 27th of 2020. I'm in Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada,
Oh,
and I'm guest speaking at this international real estate conference. And I'm on the board of directors at the time of a company called eXp World Holdings. It's a publicly traded company on NASDAQ that I served 10 years on as a board member. And eXp became one of the fastest growing residential real estate companies in the history of real estate in the world. And I'm in my hotel room. And just recently I went out and bought a brand new suit, brand new shirt, all that stuff. We went shopping. And I'm in my hotel room because I serve on this high-profile board of directors of this global company, a multi-billion-dollar company, and I want to make a good impression. I want to look good, my image and ego. I want to look good, and I don't want to look bad. I'm in my hotel room, and I looked down, and I thought, you got to be kidding me. I am possibly going to blow the buttons on my dress shirt because I'm so fat and overweight from eating all this sugar, processed foods, and fast foods over the years. It compounded because I was addicted to processed foods and sugars. And I got to walk on stage and be on stage for about 45 minutes in front of about 1,200 of the who's who in North American real estate. And I am embarrassed. I'm disgusted with myself, looking in my mirror in my hotel room. And I said to myself, wow, you are so out of integrity with your health. You don't exercise. You don't do any nutritional planning. You don't eat proper food. You indulge in food. You overeat food. You eat whatever, morning, afternoon, or evening. You don't care. You have no structure, no schedule, no accountability. And at the time, I was just about 50 years of age. Okay. I was 48 years of age. And I realized, you got to be kidding me. And so what happened was there was a guy in the room that was from Vancouver, Canada as well, top realtor. I said to him, I said, hey, you go hiking all the time in Vancouver. Can I join you? He's like, yeah. So we fly back to Vancouver from Toronto. And a couple of days later, I go on a hike with him in North Vancouver, British Columbia. And I said to him, I said, hey, you take your grandkids up here, right? And he goes, yeah. I said, how long does it take your grandkids to get up and down this little beginner hill? He goes, oh, we're up and down about 90 minutes. My grandchildren go up with me. So I'm thinking, okay. Harris took me 3 hours and 28 minutes from the parking lot to the top.
wow.
Okay. And his grandchildren that are under the age of 10 do it in 90 minutes up and down. 3 hours and 20 minutes, 28 minutes. I get to the top and my buddy's a realtor. He said, Darren, I got to leave you up here. I got to go do an open house. I got to go home and shower and change and go do an open house to sell real estate. I'm at the top of this hill. All these people are coming and going on a Saturday, I think it was Saturday or Sunday. They're coming and going. And I got so embarrassed and disgusted myself. I was going to call 911 and call search and rescue or call the first responders because I was so exhausted, out of shape. I laid down. I was too scared to call 911, call the first responders. So I laid down. I did some deep breathing, did some visualization and meditation. I got back to my car. Round trip was 6 hours.
Wow.
And when I got back to the car, I looked in my rearview mirror, Harris, and I said to myself, I don't want to live my life this way anymore. I don't want to live my life this way anymore. I'm fat, I'm overweight, and I'm scared about my health. And that was a defining moment in my life when I realized how much I bought my own BS of eating all this junk food and potato chips and soda pops and Slurpees and ice cream and all this stuff. And it compounded over a period of time. And I made a commitment that I was going to start hiking half an hour a week. And today I've summited Mount Kilimanjaro. I'm going to Mount Everest Base Camp next year. And I've summited some of the biggest mountains on planet Earth. In fact, today we do a hiking fundraiser called Take a Hike and Build a School, where we bring people out to do hiking. And through the hiking fundraiser, we raise money to build schools to help alleviate children from poverty, provide access to clean drinking water, food security, and education. Why? Because I turned a crisis in my life into an opportunity. I turned something in my life that I was embarrassed, I was disgusted, I was ashamed when I looked at myself in the mirror, realizing my gut was getting bigger. And because of hiking, I released about 60 pounds in weight. And today I'm actually working on visible abs.
Amazing.
And I never thought only 8% of the world population, only 8% of the world population have visible abs.
Wow. That's powerful.
So a guy like me, from my finances being upside down, being homeless on the streets, having an R9 credit, ready to turn it around and become very financially successful, to somebody who was fat, addicted to processed foods, addicted to sugars, addicted to a lot of sweets, to turn that around to where I am today, being in the best physical shape of my life, where I've multiplied, expand my energy, right? And today I get a chance to live my life fully, and I get a chance to live a life I love on my terms. because
Wow.
I made a decision. So when you get disgusted with yourself, like I don't want to live my life this way anymore, whether it's around your finances, your relationships, your business, your health, your fitness, your career, your business, things can change. But you got to get disgusted with yourself where enough is enough. And then make a change and then create a plan and then work the plan.
Amazing. Amazing. Darren, could you very quickly tell us a little bit about the company and the growth that you've achieved? Obviously, amazing story, amazing advice for people listening, but perhaps for people that don't really know you too well and the kind of mammoth of success you had through business, could you very quickly tell us about group of companies, the goal, the trajectory, what you're looking to achieve in the next few years to come?
Yeah. So the Darren Jack Group of Companies was created because I was this guy that nobody would bet on, nobody ever believed in, right? So what we do is I have a real estate portfolio of single family homes across North America. Now we're going into multifamily and commercial real estate across North America. So we have that portfolio that I have. Tatiana manages that. And we have somebody that's hired to manage the portfolio of that across North America. So there's that. And that's for cash flow, right? Because what I learned years ago is that, when I became a millionaire, I went and took a mentor of mine out for lunch one time for sushi in Vancouver. And he was so proud of me that on paper, I was worth over $1 million, which is on paper, which was financial net worth. But he told me you can never eat your net worth. You can only eat cash flow. So people are good on paper, but you can't eat that. You can only eat cash flow. So I like boring assets like real estate that produce monthly recurring revenue. So we have a real estate portfolio. And then I have an international company with 2 other general partners, one Tatiana, another partner. And we're building an international company right now called Smashing Numbers, which is in the bookkeeping, accounting, and tax planning space. So we're doing a roll-up right now where we're acquiring a total of 25 acquisition targets across the United States and Canada. And we're actually solving a problem. Okay, and here's the problem. If we look at right now, the average CPA, chartered professional accountant in the United States of America or Canada or internationally, is 63 years of age, him or her. They're a baby boomer. So between now and the year 2030, just in the United States alone, statistically, about 100,000 licensed CPAs are set to retire as baby boomers.
Okay.
So in regards to the succession planning, their children aren't getting into the industry. So it's not going to be a generational business. Their children are getting into like cryptocurrency, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and other technology assets that they're getting into. So we go in and we do an asset purchase of acquiring the book of business, the employees, and if they have real estate, which we like, especially if it's rental income in real estate with other tenants, we like that as a separate transaction. So here's something why we're doing a roll-up strategy and why we're doing acquisitions. If people are taking notes, write this down. It's easier to acquire revenue than to create revenue. It's easier to acquire revenue than to create revenue. See, a lot of people go to trade shows or workshops or conferences or seminars or run ads or do social media advertising. And that works, but it's a lot of heavy lifting. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy. So if you focus already buying existing companies that have been around for many years or decades, for example, in the bookkeeping accounting space, some of these have been around for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, these accounting firms in North America. So they already have a proven model, okay? They're not a startup company anymore. So what we do is we go in and we raise private money because it's a board industry to invest in, and people like to invest in bookkeeping, accounting, tax planning firms. Why? Because it's predictable income. It's predictable because it doesn't matter who's in political power, doesn't matter if there's a natural disaster. 2 things you can't avoid in life is death and taxes.
Absolutely.
So, if you're having a flood and you live in Florida and you call up the IRS and you say, hey, listen, we just got hit with a hurricane. I'm not going to pay my taxes for 6 months. I got to sort my life out. It's chaotic right now. What do you think the IRS is going to do? They're going to put you on their watch list and call an audit on you, right? So they don't play nice. They don't play nice. They don't care. You're just a number. They don't play nice with you. You better pay your taxes on time. So we love this industry because it's boring, but it's predictable cash flow. And we're growing and scaling Smashing Numbers to an 8-figure company. And then we'll either keep it for a cash flow or we'll exit to one of the big 4 accounting firms or a private equity firm in the next 4 to 5 years.
Wow.
We're building it right now to 8 figures.
Amazing. Amazing. And past that, right, what do you want to be remembered for, Darren? If we kind of get deep now, right? What do you want to be remembered for? Say in 20 years' time, 30 years' time, you're with your family, grandchildren there, running around, you're sitting on your chair, having a nice drink and, sitting on the beach. What do you want to be remembered for? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? You've lived an amazing life and so much life yet to live, so much yet to accomplish. What do you want to be remembered for? And if people hear your name, Sir Darren Jacklin, What do you want them to think when they remember you? What kind of legacy do you want to leave on this earth before you go?
That I believed in other human beings, because there was times I didn't believe in myself. I didn't think, why would somebody believe in me? I can't be trusted. I don't keep my word. My life's a mess. I don't have any money. I'm broke. I'm fat. I'm overweight. I barely passed public high school. All this negative self-talk I had of myself, that I believed in people when they didn't believe in themselves, and that I'm a cause in people's lives. That when people get around me, their lives work. They live a life of extraordinary abundance and prosperity in their lives. With LY2NK Foundation, when I got knighted in 2022, I took on the accountability for two things. I took on the global accountability as being a global ambassador for mental health awareness. And number two is I took on the accountability and the discipline of, with a team through LY2NK Foundation, of building 100 schools around the world over the next decade to help alleviate poverty, provide access to clean drinking water, food security, and education, enriching these children's lives. Because I was a kid, struggled academically in school, very insecure, very low self-esteem, no direction, no focus, and very confused in school. And so I realized that education is very important. And so when you can educate today and build a school, it revitalizes a community. It creates economic development opportunities. It creates a future for the next generation of up-and-coming children. And so in 20 years from now, you'll see us probably exceed, I would imagine, well beyond 100 schools around the world as a philanthropy project. And you'll see these communities around the world making a huge ripple of impact, because people will be creating businesses, they'll be creating jobs, we'll be creating sustainability, people will be growing their own foods, they'll be taking care of the planet, taking care of the environment, and enriching people's lives within the communities. And that's what I look at long-term as a legacy. In fact, I've been in collaboration with some families around the world to actually create a 250-year legacy plan in my master plan for my life. 250-year legacy plan.
Wow. Wow. Where does that come from, Darren? Is that just an innate desire to leave an imprint on the earth? Is that something that within your team, you've discussed it and said, right, this is something we need to do? Why? Because you're already successful, you're already doing well, I'm sure you're set, right? But why leave an impact? Why think bigger than yourself? And when other people probably don't even have a care in the world? That's perhaps my question to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Wish I could show you this diagram. I have a diagram that I live by in my life that talks, see, when we're 78% of the North American population live paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
78% of the world population. So the thing is, I didn't have my money right. And so when somebody gets their money right by restoring their integrity, because we don't have money problems in life, we have thinking problems in life. So this is something, you can't see it, I'll read it to you. So there's levels of self. Okay, this is whole training development. So first of all, there's the individual. There's relationship with somebody who lives with you, a spouse, a partner, a significant other, right? Then there's your family. You may have children or nieces or nephews, right? So there's children. Then there's a group. So you may belong to a sports team, you may belong to a church group, you may belong to a nonprofit or service club organization in your community. So then there's the group. Then there's a community that you belong to, your neighborhood, maybe you have a alumni from your school. So then there's community. Then there's organizational institution. Okay. You may belong to some political party, or you may belong to some religious organization, or you may belong to Rotary International or some big organization. Then there's society. Then there's the world. So what I look at is I look at planet Earth and I look at what are the problems that we can solve on the planet. How can we look at solving, ending homelessness, right? How can we help to alleviate poverty, provide access to clean drinking water, food security? Because here's something in my book, Until I Become, one of the things I talk about is that most of your goals and dreams do not require your actions. Think about that for a moment. Most of your goals and dreams do not require your actions. What it requires is you creating teams of people and then creating teamwork within those people to deliver on their weekly action plans, which is their KPIs, their key performance indicators, which is your metrics, which is your dashboard and how you metric things. So most of your goals and dreams don't require your actions. If you look at Elon Musk, for example, whether people like him or don't like him, you look at the empire this guy has built, or like Jeff Bezos, right? These different men, they're not running the day-to-day operations. They're working on their businesses, not in their businesses.
Absolutely.
So what I look at is to have an astronomical vision of planet Earth. So example, I belong to a private mastermind group. And the lady who runs this private mastermind group, we meet once a month in this think tank for a few hours each month on Zoom video. And her dream is to become a space astronaut. It's an outrageous goal. Well, guess what? Just recently, she got called up to start training now to become a space astronaut. Now, a few years ago, that was something on a vision board. That was like, how am I, like, she doesn't know nobody in her neighborhood, none of her family, none of her relatives, none of her friends, none of them have ever been to space. She doesn't know anybody who's ever been to space. So she had this audacious, outrageous goal, and she's walking around telling people, I'm going to become a space astronaut. People are like, yeah, sure you are. Go drink the Kool-Aid. Yeah, sure you are, right? What are you smoking? What are you drinking? They just thought she was, kumbaya, right? But then she just got called up to actually start training now to become a space astronaut. Now people are like, oh my gosh. See, so it's a 3-step process. In the beginning, you get ridiculed. People will laugh at you. People will criticize you. People will make fun of you. That's step number 1. Okay, so they'll criticize you. Step number 2 is when you're consistent. Like just in the last 30 days, I started sharing with people, you know what? I'm going to train myself to get visible abs. Sure you are, Darren. You've never had visible abs in your entire life before. So now I'm going to have visible abs. So I downloaded a program on my iPhone. I started following people on social media that already have visible abs. And so my news feeds every day on my social media channels are constantly in front of me of people on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn that have visible abs. So it's everywhere I look, I see visible abs all the time, all these different men and women from all over the world. So I'm constantly seeing all these images of people with visible abs. And then every day I'm training, I'm watching the people in the gym who's got visible abs. So I'm going to talk to them, having conversations with them. So I'm building that belief. So first of all, it's ridiculed. Step number 2 is it gets opposed. People start to see. So I'm documenting my visible ab journey on my social media. I'm taking my shirt off. I'm showing it. I'm being fully transparent with people. And people are like, oh my gosh, we can now see Darren have little baby visible abs. He's being consistent. So it's ridiculed, then it's opposed. Step number 3 is it's served as self-evident. It's served as self-evident. So in 2011, I'm flying from San Francisco to New York. I'm writing in my journal like this. I'm writing in my journal that I want to get onto paid advisory boards and paid boards of directors of public and private companies in 2011. Okay. So I wrote down on this flight 73 people that I knew that were involved in nonprofits, church groups, charity groups across North America that served on advisory boards of directors. Most of them were volunteer. And I reached out to all these people the next few months, and I interviewed all these people, these 73 people, and I said, I want to get onto paid advisory boards and paid boards of directors. And people like, Darren, you're never going to get onto a paid board of directors because you don't have an MBA. You don't have a PhD. You barely passed public high school. Let's be realistic. Well, in 2013, an ultra high net worth family here in Canada called me up one day and they said, hey, Darren, we're in discovery and due diligence right now on this residential real estate startup company. And we're looking at maybe giving some seed money for this company. Would you fly back at your own financial expense and volunteer to come back and be part of our due diligence with this company? So I flew from Vancouver back at my own expense. Now, my friends and family are thinking, you're absolutely crazy, Darren. Why doesn't this ultra high net worth family take care of your travel expenses? They're using you. They're taking advantage of you. Because in my mindset, Harris, I wanted 2 things. Number 1 is I wanted to have a seat at the table with this ultra high net worth family. I wanted to have a seat at the table. Second thing, as I talk about in my international book, Until I Become, is as human beings, all we are is a network of conversations. We're a network of conversations, and opportunities get created inside of conversations, but you got to talk to people. But we're taught as children, don't talk to strangers. Strangers are unsafe. So you got to get past that uncomfortable conversation of what we're trained as a young kid, don't talk to strangers. So I knew if I got into close proximity, because proximity is power, if I got around this ultra high net worth family and I volunteered my time and showed up with consistent performance of keeping my word and being in integrity and following through on my personal promise and my personal agreements with other people, then I would possibly earn a seat at the table through my performance. And after 7 months, I earned a seat at the table. I became the first independent director of a little company called EXP Realty. At the time, it was a fairly young company with just a couple hundred people in the company. We grew that company as a team from a few hundred people to over 80,000 people in 10 years in 24 countries on 5 continents. And we went to NASDAQ in 2018. And as a team, we did over $1 billion market cap on our first day of trading on NASDAQ. And we turned it into a multi-billion-dollar company as a team.
Wow.
All because I said yes when everybody thought I was crazy. So that's where I want my legacy, is that I'm the guy that believes in people when everybody else is laughing at you and criticizing you and making fun of you. I'm the guy that's got your back. They'll say, you know what? Let's charge forward. Let's make sure we've got integrity. Let's sure we've got structures, systems, and processes in place, and let's grow and scale this. Whatever your goal or dream is, personally, professionally, we can do this because we can take massive, consistent action. But if we operate from a functionality of having integrity, because without integrity, nothing works, then guess what? Time will either promote you or time will expose you. It's just a matter of time, and we're going to get promoted, not get exposed, because we're going to keep our word and keep our promises.
Amazing. Wow. So Darren, before we do wrap up, any closing comments or any points you want to make for clients, investors, team members, staff, perhaps someone listening in, starting their journey or in a similar position to you when you were, at that low point in your life? What advice would you want to give before we do wrap up?
2 things to always remember. Number 1 is never assume you aren't being observed. Never assume you aren't being observed. People are always watching, always observing you. That's why it's important to always tell the truth, because you're always being watched, always being observed. Number 1. Second thing is your success is someone else's miracle. Always remember that your success, your prosperity, your abundance is someone else's miracle. Just a few hours ago, I was on a phone call with a gentleman in Liberia, West Africa, who lives on $1 a day. I've been mentoring him now for the last 7 years. He makes $1 a day. And I just opened up a door for him because I've given him multiple micro commitments over the last 7 years. And now in our relationship, we've got to a level where he's consistent. He's got a good performance track record with me. He's followed through consistently on things the last 7 years through a roller coaster of peaks and valleys in his professional life. And this guy is constantly getting up no matter how hard, because our hard in a first world country is different than a hard in a third world country. Absolutely. And now I open up a door for him today that will change his life and change his children's lives over the coming years. Wow. Because he earned it, because he showed up consistently no matter what. And he kept on producing results versus excuses. Even when things were hard, even when he wanted to quit, he still maintained his integrity with me. And because he showed up, behavior never lies, he's now earned a seat at the table.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, Darren, thank you so much. And I do hope the best for him, and I hope he progresses and grows and becomes very, very successful. But thank you very much, Darren. And thank you to everyone else tuned in.